they spoke to him, and obviously they came to some agreement about the plans. But I mean, he wasn't led and said by the IRB, but at the same time he did become part of their operation. But at the end of the day, I think maybe the Rising itself, because of this idea of taking up fixed positions like the GPO or the surgeons in Stephen's Green, the forecourts and all that, like these positions were very vulnerable to any organised army with massive force, and that like going out to do that, like Bulmer Hobson had a different idea. He wanted a kind of a guerrilla war in the countryside, which did become the winning formula into 1918. But that obviously whatever the thinking was within the military council to take up these positions, it certainly took a great lot of courage to go out and more or less, as Connolly said, like, well, he said, hold on to your rifles as we may need them, because this is not just a one-off war here. We're going to fight those who are with us today. But I mean, it is someone says, how do you answer the question? Like, someone's dead and gone, and you're not going to be able to tell us now.
You wanted to...
has
he answered that for you, Scott?
Yeah, more or less. We'll take up again.
You wanted to say something else before we finish?
No, it's just to more or less explain to people a situation concerning the Dáil and votes in the Dáil, deputies, how they act. That the extradition case in which I was involved, it took 3 years before it came to a conclusion, and the judge ruled that because of the 1965 Act, Article 15, I think, it prevented extradition, because if an offence is alleged to have taken place in this state, then it shall be tried in this state. Obviously, judges, that's what the Act clearly says. And the 1965 Act was brought in by Sean Lamass and Frank Aiken, and it was a safeguard for Irish citizens. Well, after the case was, my own case was held and in our favour, the Minister of Justice, Alan Shatter, I think before even the case, the verdict was given out in the court, he obviously knew about it, but he began a process of amending the 1965 Act and removing Article 15 from the Act, so that there is no safeguard now for any person, any Irish citizen, who is sought by the Americans, and even though the crime may be alleged to have committed here, they still be sent to the United States. And the fact is that during our campaign, we got a very cross-party support in the Dáil and Senate. We had over half of the members of the Senate and Dáil on our campaign. And all Labour Party, parliamentary party, came on board, except for about 4 individuals in the Labour Party. I named them: Rabbit, Eric Bourne, someone else, the Russell, and somebody else. But anyway, what the others who were there were very helpful, and they were very active in our campaign. And yet, when it came to amending this Act of 1965, removing Article 15, there was little or no debate in the Dáil, and within 3 or 4 weeks, Shatter had put it through the Dáil and the Shannon. And that when the debate was ongoing, Shatter was there, distorting what other speakers, mostly independents and Sinn Féin, were opposed to. And the vote came down to the first reading, 101 votes in the Dáil against 20. And when the final reading came around, it was 80 votes for the amendment and 20 against. In the Shannon, there was only 4 Sinn Féin and David Norris who spoke and voted against it. Ivan Lubachik, Labour Party leader in the Shannon, her only comments was that like, and when Sartre came in to introduce the bill, was to say, I welcome this bill. The only complaint I have that the minister didn't bring it to the Shannon first. And that was the sign. Now you see, the people in the Labour Party in particular, who were on our side during the campaign, which went for 3 years, but like all of Labour Party voted for this amendment in the Dáil. There was many of them didn't even sit in the Dáil for the debate, the so-called debate, but they just trooped into the lobbies as fodder, and they voted to pass this amendment. Now I can't understand how someone today can be on Sean Garland's side against extradition, and tomorrow they will remove the safeguard which won for Sean Garland. And that tells a lot about the Labour Party and this whip system. And even people, members of the Labour Party, Dáil deputies, who had been expelled from the parliamentary party, they went in and they voted with the Labour Party in the Dáil. So we have an article on this issue of Look Left by our sister Colin McGeehan, who is a very active civil rights solicitor, not just for us, but for every person. And which he sets out some of the grounds why this bill should be opposed. We're hoping that we would create a campaign to awaken people to what has been happening, because the media did not cover this issue either. The Irish Times had about that much one day. Carol Coulter promised our solicitor, Colin McGeehan, that she would put an article in if he wrote it of 800 words. It never appeared. No. And for the other papers, you may say, well, we know what they're like. I mean, the issue, or the whole question of journalistic standards in this country, they don't exist. So I think that at the end of the day, hopefully we will be able to get some kind of a campaign off the ground, even a question of publicity, to let people know what the story is now. Now this man Shatter is a dangerous man, and he certainly his conduct in the Dáil and in the Shannon was to just abuse people who were making a different point to what he wanted to do. And he had just contempt for it. And that obviously, as the vote says, the whip was successful, and that's that.
Well, Sean, look, we want to thank you for bringing that to our attention. Certainly one of those issues that's going to have to be looked at in terms of maybe our forum at some stage in the new year might look at that as well. From a legalistic point of view, in terms of how the system at the moment is treating ordinary people and how what this is actually supposed to be representing. I want to thank everybody. Maybe Jerry, before you go, or will you hang around for a second? I want to thank everybody for attending. We've had a great attendance here. We've had some very good questions. I think we've had two good speakers. I think we've hopefully given you some food for thought in relation to what we believe is the very important legacy of James Connolly. Not just going up to 1914, but for people who work for the trade union movement, who are activists in the trade union movement, who call themselves on the left from whatever party they want to be in at the moment and call themselves on the left. We hope that opens up thought for yourselves going forward, and that you will bring some of the ideas that we have talked about here back to your own organisations and use it. And as Paul said at the back there, that to bring this back to the working class people in the ordinary parts of the country, that this is something that they should be involved in, they should be discussing. So once again, before you go, thanks very much for attending, and thanks to the speakers.